At this point, I'd like to talk about Inside Track, because this Inside Track and our innovation is the basis of this new series that we're doing. And Mr. Jerry Fletcher has been a giant part of the creation and the development of this series. And with that, Jerry is our Inside Track speaker. Now, Jerry is the man who's made it his business to understand how trust impacts success. We all know about the importance of trust, but we're about to learn more. Corporations he's worked for are familiar names like Intel, Tektronix, Sequent, Freightliner, and Pentax. Jerry is CEO of his own marketing consulting firm now in its 31st year. But who's counting? He is a professional speaker with the international credentials, author of 3 books, as well as 7 audio programs and 2 video programs. He's considered a master of the art of networking and trust-based business development. He advises consultants that are changing the way business is being done around the corner and around the world. He named Digimarc and helped raise $500,000 in just 17 days for the startup. He added $1.2 million to the first quarter income of a consulting firm with a single suggestion. He increased leads by 1,200% for a consultant with a simple profile change on LinkedIn. And he tells me that he stopped counting successful introductions of new products and services at 207. Today, he will share secrets of how to build trust and the impact of your marketing in the new normal. Jerry, thank you for being here and all you do.
Thank you, John. Really appreciate it. Over the last few months, I've spoken 15 times about trust in the new normal. I've done so virtually from Portland to London and to summits around the world. I could have just delivered that speech again, but I decided that I'd change it a little bit and add something that I think all of us can use. So I'm going to incorporate some information from the 17th annual Consultant Marketing Survey, a thing I do every year. And I'm going to send a PDF of that research report to everyone who registered. So let me explain why trust is so important in my view. It was a few years ago, and I'd done a keynote for a friend at a meeting in Lake Oswego, and we decided we'd have lunch to celebrate a successful meeting. And so we went down the hill, down to John's Landing, and there's a little Chinese place down there. So we had a Chinese meal. And at the end of it, we got our fortune cookies. And I cracked my fortune cookie and I read it and it said, a wise man knows everything, a shrewd one, every one. And my friend Michael, who had me speak for him, pushed his glasses down his nose, looked across them at me and said, that's okay as far as it goes. And I looked back at him and said, well, what do you mean? He said, look, what you know is important. Who you know can really matter. But the single most important thing about building a business is who trusts you. Let me say that again. The single most important thing about building a business is who trusts you. Okay. The question, as I said, is who trusts you? 4 people must trust you in today's world. First, yourself. If you don't trust yourself, you're dead in the water. That little voice on your shoulder saying, I'm not so sure you know what you're doing. It doesn't work. You have to get rid of it. You have to push it aside. You have to make sure that you trust yourself. Second, you have to trust your team. Now, a lot of you work solo. I know that. I work solo for the most part. I do have a VA. But you have to trust your team. And even if that's people you don't work with all the time, you're going to work with them part of the time. So you've got to trust them. Third, you have to trust your company. Now, if you have your own company, that's fine. But a lot of you have another company that you work with and or companies that you're under contract with or strategic agreement with. You got to trust that company. But the single most important person you must trust is your customer. The single most important person you must trust is your customer. That's the first major change in the new normal. We've seen it coming. It's been happening over the last 5 to 10 years, but it's here now, and there's no turning back. Let me talk to you about a little research that I'm going to give you a whole lot of here today. Trust in the new normal is based on what the Edelman Trust Barometer tells us. Now, since 2000, they've been doing a survey they call the Barometer. It's an annual survey. It's conducted in 28 countries. Last year, they had 33,000 plus respondents, okay? Back in 2004, they said, they found out that people trusted people just like me. I don't mean like you and me. I mean people like me in the survey, okay? 23% of them said they trusted people just like me. By 2016, that percentage was 82%. 82%. Now think about that for a moment. What does that get you to? They trusted people that were like themselves. They trusted them more than they trusted governments or institutions. The only people that they trusted more were academics and some attorneys. Now, that doesn't say that they liked attorneys. They only trusted them and they had their respect, and that was about as far as it went. Okay. Now, this is when we all became sure we understood this whole polarization thing. Worldwide in 2021, the numbers have gone down. It's down to 53%. And that's a positive note that we're seeing in the world today. Thank God we're seeing a small but positive note like that. So what's changed in consultant marketing? These are the results from 2020 from the survey. The proportion of our respondents was similar to what it's been in the past. And you'll see here that there were established firms about 69%, startups were about 19%, and growth firms, those in the middle, were about 11%. Okay, but the shift to digital has finally started to impact consultant marketing, as seen here in the overall strategy selection from all respondents. Referral marketing is still far and away the most used marketing strategy. But online sales and internet marketing are showing significant gains across startups, growth, and established firms. So just to be sure about this, we asked respondents which single strategy they would choose if they could pick only one. It's obvious. Referral marketing is still number one, but notice how internet marketing holds its position while prior contracts, direct sales and networking diminish. That is a shift. Your takeaway here is critical. You must be memorable. None of the tactics work if you've not established yourself as someone who stands out from the crowd. The outcomes you deliver can make you unforgettable, but first, you got to be memorable. The majority of consultants, here we go. The majority of consultants have done some other things. Let's just take a quick look there. Excuse me. The majority of consultants are continuing to practice as solos. It's been the case since the earliest surveys that I did 17 years ago. But here's an interesting factor. Speaking is now the most preferred networking tactic, but actually, when you talk to people about how they're using it and what they're doing, the suggestion is that getting booked for speaking engagements is still a bit of a mystery, something to think about. The most impressive shift in thinking is with regard to social networking involvement. Most consultants know that their social networking profile will be reviewed by prospects. Facebook surprisingly came in second as consultants stated the networks that they are currently involved with. That was a true surprise for me. Most of us are very heavily into LinkedIn, as can be seen here. But having Facebook on the side is kind of important. You need to know about it. The takeaway here is that consistency across all your profiles helps to make you trustworthy. You gotta be consistent. Okay. The tradition of established firms being bastions of networking is coming to an end. Preference for internet marketing has now replaced networking. Direct sales activities, and it's considered more valuable than prior contacts. Two very powerful marketing ideas have taken hold in the established consulting firms, the bigger firms, the ones with money, the ones that are established. The idea that you can generate new business from the internet and speaking on the right stages can build your business. There is very little doubt in the research information on this. Thought leadership is the rubric that's assigned to this new combination of tactics to building a consulting practice. It works. Information and materials developed for either content marketing, online, or speaking at industry events pays off in increased prospects. If you can change the way people think, you're on your way to becoming legendary. First, be memorable, then be desirable. But change the way they think, and you could become legendary. Why is that important? People are used to their institutions leading the way. This is what the numbers looked like in 2021 compared to 2020. Academics still get the highest rating, even higher than people like yourself. But the bottom section of the findings is where it gets really interesting. Look at this. People trust CEOs more than journalists, government officials, people like themselves, and academic experts. CEOs. They trust them and they expect those people to lead. So what does that mean to you? If most of you, like me, deal in the C-suite, you damn well better be ready to help that CEO lead, not only in his or her business, but outside it. You need to be able to help them. You need to become their trusted advisor. I know those are weird words, but this is a case where they actually apply. Okay. This chart's kind of hard to read, but it says it all in the headline, so I'm going to read it. Business is now the only institution seen as both competent and ethical. It is more ethical than any government, any NGO, or the media. There's very little doubt about it. COVID has reinforced that belief. We look at the Edelman results comparing ethical behavior to competence as perceived by the people interviewed. It becomes clear that businesses, with your help, are seen as the solution to a lot of problems. Going forward, every business, your clients, will have to deal with it. Now, wouldn't it be nice if there was a pill for that? There is, kind of. It's called oxytocin. Research on it began in 2001. They were looking for chemicals in the brain and how they impacted trust. They found that humans naturally inclined to trust other humans, but they didn't always. Oxytocin levels is what caused the difference. They found that stress inhibits oxytocin. And when that happens, you lose. You lose the power to have empathy with one another. Now, Dr. Zach, who was doing this research, went on and found 8 measurable trust-generating management behaviors. I'm just going to hit this and take them one at a time. For starters, things you can do to boost the management behaviors in your organizations you work with. First, recognize excellence. When somebody does something well, say so, tell them. Second, induce challenge stress. What that means is that when a team is given a difficult but achievable task, there's a release of oxytocin. okay? And there's also a release of another chemical called adrenocorticotropin that intensifies people's focus, their ability to get into something, and strengthens their social connections. But it only works if the challenges are attainable and have a concrete endpoint. So what do you need to put in there? Some of the things that Rudy was talking about. Concrete endpoint. Things that they can get into and they can do together. Number 4, enable job crafting. What happens here is a way to put things together so that they are comfortable doing what's going on. I missed number 3, allow work discretion. Basically, if you try to get people to do everything by the book, step by step by step by step, they will rebel. Let them have a little discretion in how they put it together, okay? Number 5, share information broadly. I don't mean any information, I mean all information. Again, Rudy's found that this works in the restaurant business, which is one of the toughest. If you let people know how they're being measured, what's being done, how everything is being looked at, and share the information with them, they get aboard. No question about it. Okay, intentionally build relationships. Now, there's a lot of folks out there that think they're intentionally building relationships when they walk through an area and just, pat people on the back, say, nice job, you're doing a good thing, and so on. No. What this is talking about is intentionally building relationships with employees beyond the job. Knowing and understanding that they've got a kid in grade school. Knowing and understanding that that high schooler is probably not going to make it into college and is looking for other possibilities. Knowing and understanding your employees, the people you work with, the clients you work with, getting a more intimate relationship with them can be very, very powerful. But it's not only your relationships that count. It's those of the employees with one another. So encouraging that will give you a much stronger team. Number 7, facilitate whole person growth. That means that you are not only going to try to help those employees, those people you work with, those clients, those whoever, to try to do things better in terms of their job. You're going to try to help them find a way to facilitate the fact that they like to draw, or the fact that they like to write, or the fact that they like to do something that's a little bit different than most people would expect them to do. Help them find a way to do it, and you'll build a much powerful management structure. Number 8 is show vulnerability. Joe mentioned this. If you show vulnerability, somehow people will believe you are much more trustworthy. That is the truth. There's little doubt about that. Okay. But, and here's the big one. Trust is counterintuitive. Okay? Looking at things short-term makes your short-term results go down. Tried this multiple times. It's true. The best way to be credible is to admit when you're not. If you screw up, let the world know. Next, you have the most influence when you stop trying to influence. People resist being pushed, but they accept being pulled or being walked along with. Stop trying to influence. You'll be more influential. The best way to get more closings is to stop closing. Anyone who sells anything at the high level, big dollar worth, I will guarantee you that the more times you try to close, the less you will. I've actually done a study on this, and the number of closes that should be attempted are really based on the price. The lower the price, the more closes. The higher the price, the fewer, up to none. Let the client ask you what they need to do next to buy. To gain control, give it up, okay? Businesses that listen to Mr. Zach's advice about oxytocin have learned that that is true as well. They've also learned that trust has some other dividends. Let me talk to you about one of those. I first met Tony Simons. He's up at Cornell University when I was at an NSA conference. My friend and I were sitting out in the back of the hotel having a beer and watching people that were coming back from the pool. And Tony was, one of those academics that we all think so highly of. And here he was in a white robe coming across the way there in his bare feet. And he said, "Hey, are you guys with NSA?" And we said, "Yeah." He said, "Can I talk to you?" And we said, "Sure." So he sat down, had a beer, and we asked him what he was doing and, what he was up to. And he said, "Well, I've convinced the owner of a chain of hotels to allow me to investigate the impact of trust on his operations." In all, there were 76 properties that Tony analyzed. He looked at 6 trust factors. Those are the ones that you see here. Behavioral integrity was the one that was seen to be the best indicator of increased profitability. It was worth $250,000 a year. $250,000, 76 units. You do the math. Trust pays off. There's absolutely no question about it. Whoops. This survey was fielded just after the USA was directed to shelter in place. Consultants felt the loss of business immediately. Over 85% of them said that the quarantine had a negative impact on their business. The few that reported a positive impact were in the online marketing business or working with essential industries. After the initial hunkering down, new communications tools like Zoom were immediately adopted. Prognostications for the future were, for the most part, positive. This is the one that stuck out for me. We are a solution that will continue. We are a solution that will continue. So what have we learned today? Basically, who trusts you is the key to your success. You gotta be memorable. And consistency pays dividends. It all comes down to this. Trust is the shortcut to brand. And I'd like to close with a story to demonstrate a lot of what I said today. Let me tell you about Margie. I was working in Chicago on a contract. We were in the boardroom, and the president of the company basically said, "Well, I've come to a conclusion. I'm going to do something." And we all kind of looked at him and went, "Oh, what's that?" He said, "I've decided that I'm going to let every single employee pick their own title, and we'll put it on the cards for them and print them up." Well, I'm a marketing guy, so I gotta kind of object a little bit to that. I go, "What are you doing?" He said, "No, I made my mind up. It's what I'm going to do." So a little while later, we're downstairs. We're in the cafeteria. He walks up on the podium there and taps on the mic. Is this thing working? And he announces it. He says, "Okay, I want everybody to know that I've decided that you're each going to be allowed to pick your own title and put it on your business cards. We'll print all those up for you." And right down in front of him, Margie's sitting. And as he says that, she starts bouncing in her seat, just saying, I know. And he looks down and he says, "What do you know?" Margie says, I know. "Margie, what is it you know?" She said, "I know what I want my title to be." And he said, "Well, what's that?" And she said, "Galactic Commander." You could see the lump rising in his throat as he said, "You got it." And so she became the Galactic Commander. Now, Margie worked in a department that basically took phone calls, incoming phone calls, and all they could do was offer support to people that were looking for help. They couldn't sell anything unless that person on the phone actually requested it. 3 months later, Margie's sales were up 20-odd change percent. A month after that, 20-odd percent plus a little more, then plus a little more. And they kept watching that. But that's not what was important. What was important was the fact that people were calling and asking, "I'd like to speak to the Galactic Commander." These were people who had never received a catalog from the company, had never been called on by a salesman, who had never been sent any kind of direct mail, had no contact with the company other than someone from some other company saying, "You ought to talk to the Galactic Commander." Margie had the moxie to pull off the title. She had the moxie to handle new customers right out of the chute. She had the ability to be memorable. And if I don't leave you with anything else today, it's that to be trusted, you got to start out by being memorable. And the one thing that's more important about being memorable than anything else is that they know they can trust you. So what happened to Margie? Well, in a year, there were 3 galactic commanders. I hope I've had some comments here that will help you today. I'm more than happy to answer any questions you might have. And geez, I'm so glad I've done this 17 times. Thank you all.
Hey, Jerry,
Yo.
isn't that something that Elon Musk just pulled off?
Who knows what Elon Musk has pulled off?
Well, no, I mean, he changed his title to some weird technocrat thing, and then, you know, they've totally renamed all of their C-suite. I don't know if I don't know if you knew that.
I've been watching renaming and repositioning, whatever you want to call it, of C-suites for a lot of years. And the one thing I can tell you without blinking is, if you want to know who to talk to in a company, there are 3 letters that are the most important: CEO. If you want to talk to somebody who will get it done inside that company, there are 3 letters that are important: COO. All other C starting letters are just people that are wannabes, including CMOs, and I've dealt with 1,000 of them. The reality there is changing those titles doesn't really work until you build the trust that's necessary in that title. We'll see what Elon Musk can do. He's got a big budget.
Okay, who else has got questions for Jerry or comments? Mary Beth, I bet you've got something, and they're from Chicago.
Oh, I've been furiously taking notes and a lot of screen prints, and great talk, Jerry. I enjoyed listening to it. A lot of points, good food for fodder. Maybe I do some of them, but certainly not front of mind. So thank you for the new roadmap.
Oh, not a problem at all. For everyone, the Edelman material is all on the internet, and I got to tell you, they are a tremendous resource. The fact that they do comparative studies based on previous years really can make a difference. But this information about who people trust is absolutely critical. I mean, think about this. Some of the biggest, how do I say this? We don't trust our institutions anymore, but when you consider the fact that Facebook, Google, and Amazon are 3 of the largest institutions on the planet, you can see why. It's amazing. All the Edelman stuff is on, like I said, it's online, and great information, great material. The study, as I said, I'm going to send out to everybody that registered. So you'll have a copy of it, and you can draw your own conclusions. If you have questions on that, feel free to call me.
Wonderful, wonderful. Elizabeth Glenn, I don't know that we've heard from you before, Elizabeth. What questions do you have for Jerry or Rudy?
Actually, I found this quite insightful, and I'm from IMC SoCal, so I'm in Southern California, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I guess the key is I agree with the trust. How do you, what considerations do you have becoming more memorable so that you are trusted? Do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, there's some real tricks to it. Essentially, I could do 3 or 4 days on this, so let's just see if I can do 15 seconds. The truth is that you have 3 seconds from the time somebody says, "What do you do?" to brand yourself. I didn't stutter. 3 seconds. That's it. In the next 10 to 12 seconds, you can position yourself in such a way to help you be a little bit more memorable. And within 30 seconds, you should be able to give them a way to refer you and to make sure that they remember you, and possibly even give them one way to say, hey, this is a person I know can get this done. 30 seconds. I've developed a thing called 30-second marketing. When somebody said to me, have you got an elevator speech? Well, if you're like the rest of us, you find that elevator speech toxic. You don't want to do it, and you don't want to have it done to you. And one of the things that I teach is very, very straightforward. People want to have a conversation. They don't want to hear a commercial. If you give them a conversation, they will remember you, and they will understand that you're interested in them, not in selling them something. So I hope that answers your question, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Yes.
How about Regina? Regina?
Yes, hi. Well, this can be to either or, but it has to do with the survey. Jerry, you were saying in terms of, trust comes from some of the social media. Was that broken down into demographics? Because, the so-called younger people tends to look at more social media in terms of resources versus someone who's not a millennial or Gen Z who tends to do more the referral. So I don't know if that was broken down in the report that you had said. And I had another question, was that, you say memorable, and I think since I started this business, everybody's a consultant. So there's a lot more people who are now consulting or want to go into consulting, which makes the job of being more memorable actually harder in that respect, because now everyone's a consultant.
I agree. It's harder. And the worst words you can say when somebody says, what do you do? Or I'm a consultant. Okay. Let me deal with your first question first. As far as the survey is concerned, I've gone back over the last 3 years and actually done telephone follow-ups. And it's interesting that no matter what the age, clients tend to look for consultants in the same way. And it's very straightforward. They talk to friends, cohorts, friends of people in their own cohort first and say, do you know anybody that can do this sort of thing for me? They then gather those possibilities, and they don't care about age. They don't care about whether you're a millennial or whatever. They don't care. And they'll take that information, and the next stop is LinkedIn. And on LinkedIn, they'll look at what's said there and the information about that particular person, and they'll compare it to other people. Their next stop after that, if they keep you in the equation, is to go to your website, okay, and look at what it says on your website. And then if you make that cut, you may get a phone call, okay? Now, here's the difference. The millennials may send you a text message instead of an email. That's where it separates. That's the only place it separates. In most cases, you will get an email or a telephone call. And the reason for that is this, and this is one of the reasons I tell people, if you don't have your telephone number on the top right-hand corner of your website, something's wrong, okay? Because when someone has a problem, it's now. They want to talk to someone. Give them that number so they can reach out to you quickly, okay? Now go back to the other side of this in terms of whether millennials or whatever are important. All of the information that you use in any kind of approach that uses, I'm going to call it inbound marketing, for want of better terms, everything you do has to be consistent. If you are not completely consistent, you will lose. Period. End of discussion. So if it says you do something on your website, but it doesn't say you do that on LinkedIn, or it doesn't say you do that on wherever they saw you, you lose. Again, you must be consistent in order to build trust. There's no question about it. It's one of the things I do with clients all the time. Simply, how can I put it? Having an appearance in all those places means one thing, but having an appearance that's consistent, that tells the same story, the same way every time, is probably more powerful than anything else you'll ever do. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.